let's talk with Argy. That's how she pronounces it. Argy, welcome to the show.
It's Argy.
Argy,
save us. Things are getting awkward.
Well, it's not going to get any better with this topic, which I'm very apprehensive about.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let's go for it. What's up?
So here it is. I've got a friend, and I asked, are you atheist or theist? And they said, I'm neither. I said, well, how can you be neither? Like, you either believe in God or you don't. And they said, no, never thought about God, don't even want to think about it.
Okay.
Cool. I would call them an apatheist.
Oh, okay.
There is a word for everything.
That's my favorite one for that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the audience what it means?
You approach theism or atheism with apathy, and so you just don't give a crap. But, I mean, if they don't care, I don't know how far you can take the conversation anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's useful to push people into labels. And it also does come down to whether or not they're identifying atheist as, somebody who actively disbelieves in God and says God doesn't exist, or somebody who says, I have no belief in a God, therefore I am an atheist, right? So they might be interpreting it one way when in fact you could interpret it the other way as well. Now, this is actually diving into a conversation that I saw happening on Twitter about one of our blog posts about atheism versus agnosticism.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get a call from one of those people who,
But the point that I would make to this friend, if they care, they might not care. They might truly be an apatheist, in which case, cool, good for them. They don't have to worry about it, and that's not a conversation that's interesting. But the reason that I push for atheism to encompass a lot more than just positive, hard atheism where I believe no God exists is the same reason that, for example, gay people and lesbians and bisexual people all decided to group together because they had more social power. They had more lobbying power. They had the ability to sway elections, to sway social results, because they decided we're going to consider ourselves a group now. And so I think that if enough people who actually did not believe in a God actively decided to call themselves one thing, could be atheist, could be something completely different, doesn't have to be that word. If everybody grouped together and came to an election or to a census and we're like, this is the word for us. In fact, Tim Minchin is encouraging people online right now in Australia to mark not religious on the census so that those people could actually be counted in the numbers that actually represent them.
And that's where you live, Argy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I live.
Yeah, so that's my thought.
Okay, so this was being discussed on the Facebook page for Skeptic Generation, and I stopped reading it because there was like 50 comments, and I went, oh, no, that kind of thing. But it comes up to when you talk about babies, a baby atheist or theist. And again, I would argue that you can't force a baby into one of those categories, but a lot of atheists will say, no, babies are atheists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are definitely some people who would say that.
And or do you want to go ahead?
I would say that both of those are self-identified labels. And so if a baby cannot self-identify, then that baby does not have that label. If we want to get technical and if we want to use atheist in a certain way, then sure, I guess. But as far as I'm concerned, we don't put labels on other people. We respect the labels that they choose. And so if a baby cannot choose to be a theist or an atheist because they're a baby, then to me that negates the question.
Okay. I think we're on the same page.
I don't know. I've seen kind of different sides of it. You know, the whole atheist baby idea. You know, it totally depends on how you define atheist. And so, if you define atheist as someone who has not accepted the religion, the theism, as true, then you're an atheist. I've heard that definition before, and by that definition, any living thing that has not accepted that religion is true is an atheist, and that becomes a huge catch-all. But I think that we did put a lot of thought into it. And so if I tell someone I'm an atheist, I would love for someday them to assume that I've actually looked into it and come up with, hey, I'm not convinced by the evidence, because I've evaluated the evidence.
Another problem though, Eric, and the other problem then is, you said every living thing. Some people will extrapolate out and say, well, a rock is an atheist as well. Yeah,
by if you get really loose with that definition, I've heard that too. Personally, the way I use it, I like to encourage somebody who has at least engaged with the idea, and then they've decided, hey, they're not convinced, then they can call themselves an atheist. But otherwise, while that may be true, if that's how you define it, it's not going to win you any arguments, and it's definitely just going to make you sound really smug. And that's not going to help anything. Now, where does agnostic come into it? So we've talked about...
It's not part of that conversation.
To you and to me and to a lot of people watching. But a lot of people think that agnostic means, I don't know.
A lot of people think it means undecided. And I know we're quite strong that it's not knowing, but I do think that we kind of have to go, has the word changed its meaning over time? Agnosticism, that is.
Right.
It definitely has. All of these words have. And the morphing definition of atheism has had growing pains for a very long time, but it is changing because that's the way that we're using the word. We're using it differently. I would say that Gnosticism or agnosticism, if someone says they're agnostic, I think the position there is, and what I walk away from that, is that person is saying it cannot be known. Not that I don't know, but it can't be known. Like there's no way of knowing if that's ever going to be resolved. And I just don't think that's true. If you say that, I'll give you an example. Somebody says, I'm an agnostic. It cannot be known if a God exists. And somebody says, okay, well, here's my definition of a God. It is a pink unicorn in this room right now. And I look, there's no pink unicorn. I can say, well, that does not exist. It is not here. And in that way, I don't think you can be agnostic like that. I think that's kind of steelmanning a position into absurdity, but it shows that we're limited in the way we talk about things. And so we just kind of got to make sure that if we're having this conversation, we're listening to the person who's calling, or, well, that's us. We're listening to our interlocutor, and we're making sure that we agree on those definitions before we engage with them. Otherwise, we're talking at each other and not with each other.
Well, interestingly, Bart Ehrman calls himself agnostic, not atheist. That always fascinates me.
Who does? Oh, Bart Ehrman?
Bart Ehrman?
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that I like atheist as a term personally is, number one, it was demonized when I was a kid. I really needed to learn. I thought that atheist meant Satan worshiper. And when I learned that, so like when you get that narrative, you're like, well, that's not true. And the more and more I learned, I came across people using the word atheist to mean somebody who's not convinced by the evidence. And I liked that. When I came across agnostic and I decided, hey, am I an agnostic? At first I thought it can't be known. And then somebody said, well, what about a concrete definition that's not true? Okay. Then I can know that at least that definition isn't true. So I'm not really an agnostic in that way. Other people look at agnosticism and says, do you have the information? Do you have the evidence? And again, it is an entirely different and amazing conversation, but if you're not clued into what the other person is talking about, you can be talking about something entirely different from the other person, and it can be really, really frustrating, but that's just something to watch out for.
So this creates some problems for me too with the Satanic Church, which I now understand is not, necessarily worshipping Satan, but I still can't bring myself to say I'm part of the Satanic Church because of the implication that has. So to a theist, for example, if you say you're a member of the Satanic Church, then they think that you are saying there is a thing called Satan and you actually are following that thing.
Agreed, but I think that the Satanism has a different purpose. It's not so much talking about themselves as much as they are using those labels to affect change. You know, most Satanists that I know are very, very snarky atheists. And the reason that they call themselves Satanists is because they're not just talking about what they believe and having those conversations one-on-one, but they are using that to show, hey, anybody can create a religious platform, and we're going to create a religious platform so that we can affect political change. A lot of people also I've seen are artists that have joined the Satanic Temple, you know, people who enjoy performance art and enjoy kind of pushing people past where they're comfortable so that they can engage with those things. It kind of falls into that we need all types of people approach. Yeah. You know, there are some podcasters and YouTubers who get really, really angry and yell into the microphone. And I hear people say, oh, well, why would they possibly do that? Because some people are convinced by that way. They get mad. They go, screw them. I'm going to prove them wrong. And then 2 years later, they're an atheist. You know? But other people see that and they go, well, screw that. I'm not engaging with that. That's all atheists are. They're all angry, vile humans. And they never engage with the content. And so it takes all of us. And I think that the Satanic Temple, while it's not something that I would do, I see a lot of use there. I see a lot of benefit there.
Last thing I'm going to say is that I think is to do with this, and then I'm going to go, is we just got a ruling in Australia that Pastafarianism is not a religion. They came down very heavily on that.
Interesting. What reasons did they give?
I'm sorry, I don't have it all at my fingertips.
Could you post that in the Facebook?
Being surprised. Yes, I will.
Because that would be really interesting to look at.
Someone wanted to do the thing where they wanted to wear a strainer on their head, like I was seeing done in the US, and they were told most definitely that they were not allowed to do that because it wasn't a religion. Interesting.
Okay, so they have officially, legally defined a religion then, which is super interesting to me.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely if you can find that information, post it on the Facebook group because I want to know more.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
In the meantime,
nice to speak to you.
Thank you so much for calling in, Argy.
Yeah.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for covering for me while I went to go to the bathroom.
Absolutely. I think I did pretty good. People wouldn't have known, but
gotta be honest with y'all.
True enough.
This is a real show full of real mistakes made by real people.
So I just got to say before we dive into the next call, Sam Zimmerman in the chat says they find a lot of truth in the philosophical side of Satanism, and that I've got to be careful. I have no idea what that means, and I am super, super curious. Please call.